Hello, and welcome to episode 23 of Yarn to Table. My name is Celeste, and this is a podcast about my knitting life. If this is your first time, I want to give you a big warm welcome, and I hope that there's something here you see that you like and that you'll subscribe so that you can join us again. And for my many returning viewers, thank you so much for coming back. I have been off for a couple of weeks because I was in Cambridge, Massachusetts for my first residency for the MFA in creative writing program that I've started, and I'm very exhausted from that. So we have a lot to catch up on, and I'm going to apologize in advance for how spacey my brain is probably going to be today. We'll get more into that in the chit chat segment at the end because not everybody cares. But yeah, so just bear with me when it comes to that. We've got a lot to go through, and my brain is definitely not running at full capacity yet. So you can find me on Instagram and Ravelry as Celeste Full, and there is also a Ravelry group, which you can find the link in the doobly-doo. You can also search for Yarn to Table on Ravelry. And in that forum on the group is where you're going to find show notes for every episode of the podcast, an AMA thread where you can ask me questions if you want to hear them answered on the podcast, an introduce yourself thread, and all the information about the giveaways and knit-alongs that go on. If you go to my profile on Ravelry, you can find detailed project pages for anything that you see here on the podcast, and you can find other episodes of the podcast via the blog posts tab on any project page to see relevant episodes where I've talked about that project here on the podcast. As I said, I'm a bit sleepy and tired, and we're kind of running it casual today. So I've got my my Team Fiona t-shirt on, which I'll show you. If you're a longtime watcher, you're probably already familiar with everyone's favorite hippo, Fiona, of the Cincinnati Zoo. And if you're not, I really recommend Googling her because she's pretty amazing. So yeah, I'm repping my Fiona pride today. And I am drinking some ice water because it is very, very hot here. And I am a little bit still, I think, dehydrated from walking around Cambridge and then just not sleeping enough, and then going to a wedding yesterday where maybe had a little bit of wine, and then our power was out yesterday, and that meant our AC was out. So I've just basically been drinking as much water as I can, you guys, just trying to feel like a normal human being. I'll tell you about this glass, so why not? This is the artist Charlie Harper. I don't know if you're familiar. He's fairly well known, but he is a local artist, or was, actually just over the border in Indiana, where my husband is from. And my husband is a really big fan, so we found these glasses when we were in New York at Fish's Eddy, or Fish Eddies, or however you say it. Yeah, and all the glasses have like different little birds on them, and yeah, he's pretty cool. He does all the like Park Service art for like signs and stuff around here, and yeah, I think his stuff is really, really great. And I threw a lemon in there because I'm fancy. Okay, let me catch you up on knit-alongs, and then we will jump into the podcast. I have got finished objects for you, and I have like the mother of all stash enhancements, so you're going to want to stick around. Let's just real quick talk about the knit-alongs we have currently happening. The Great Unravel is our recycling yarn from an old sweater knit-along. I won't go into detail on it because it's almost over, but it was a lot of fun. I've been co-hosting it with Caitlin of Wool Jewel and Taylor of Wool Needles Hands, and it will be ending on July 17th, which is 1 week to the day from when this podcast should go up. So make sure that you get your finished objects in the FO thread on my page, and also in the FO threads on Caitlin and Taylor's pages if you're participating there. And make sure that you watch all 3 of our podcasts to make sure that you hear your name if you are a winner. The other knit-along that I have going on is the Summer Garment Cal, which I'm co-hosting again, but this time with Anna of Dunkelgrün. And There are details for the rules in the chatter thread description, and you know, for what constitutes a summer garment, so you can bop over to the Ravelry group and check that out. I also have a big list of suggested patterns, all kinds of just ideas for summer garments, though you absolutely don't have to choose something from that list, but you can find that in my Yarn to Table group on Ravelry. And that's shaping up to be a very enjoyable knit along as well, and it is running all the way through the end of August, so you have plenty of time. And in fact, if you can knit multiple garments by the end, multiples are welcome. It just gives you another chance to win. Okay, so let's talk about finished objects. I have a finished pair of socks to share with you guys. Apologies for the fact that they're not on sock blockers. I forgot to bring them up here, and like I said, I'm super exhausted right now, so I just didn't go and get them. Hopefully you will still enjoy looking at the beautifulness that is these socks. 2 of them, just to prove to you that I knit 2 of them. So here's this gorgeous yarn. This is Cat Sandwich Fibers in the colorway It's Bananas, B-A-N-A-N-A-S. So the base is this kind of tonal yellow, and then it has these big splashes of brown and these little speckles of red and blue that really turn orange and green in places because of the yellow. I love the way this is knit up. I love how it has these nice little stripy type things. I'm not a big fan of yarn pooling, but I'm a huge fan of when you have a slightly longer section of variegation to give this effect. And you know, speaking of that, Anna of Dunkelgrün, my co-host for the Summer Garment Cal, she recently did a really, really great bit on her podcast where she talked about how to recognize when yarn is going to pool and when it's not going to pool based on like the length of the sections of different variegated colors. So you guys should check that out because it's really, really helpful if you're looking to pool or not pool. In Anna's case, she really likes pooling, but only on socks. She doesn't want it on larger garments. For me, I tend to avoid it generally. She didn't talk about getting this effect specifically, but I think you can pretty much extrapolate from what she said that, you know, you get this effect when you have something that is a little bit longer, but not long enough to pool. So basically, you don't want your section to wrap around the sock. You want it to be just like long enough to kind of show up, if that makes any sense. Anyway, this color is gorgeous, and all these ideas about pooling, how to get this effect, and how to get something a little bit more speckled, which I'll actually show you an example of in my next project. All of those are just rattling around in my noggin right now as I'm starting my own hand dyeing journey, for lack of a better word. That's what they always say on The Bachelor, so that's what I'm going to say. It's my journey. Anyway, I told you I'm not fully functioning right now. Sorry. What was I talking about? This sort of stripy effect and what creates this and what creates pooling are all things that I've really been thinking about a lot in terms of the yarn that I want to create. So thank you, Anna, for that awesome little tutorial. And thank you, Cat Sandwich Fibers, for this beautiful yarn. I'm sorry, I forgot the name of the dyer off the top of my head right now, but her yarn is one of my absolute favorites. Yeah, so the story with these guys, well, first let me tell you the specifics. This is sort of my vanilla recipe, which is that I do cuff down, I cast on 56 stitches. I'm sorry, this little bit of light is making me crazy. One second. I cast on 56 stitches, which is on the small side. I tend to be a bit of a looser knitter, and I really like my socks to fit super snug because they are going to stretch a little bit. So I cast on 56 stitches. I knit them on a 2.25 millimeter needle, which I think is a US size 1, but I'm not 100%, but I know I use 2.25. Then I do a 1x1 twisted rib, usually for about 10 rounds. I don't like a particularly long cuff myself. The cuff here is about 75 rows, fish lips kiss heel, 75 row foot, that's what fits my foot, and then a Kitchener's toe where you decrease evenly on both sides, and then Kitchener across the toe. So that's my general formula. Sometimes I will do a heel flap and gusset, but a fish lips kiss fits me pretty well, honestly, and I really hate knitting gussets. So, you know, this has tended to be my my general recipe for now. I wanted to do vanilla socks because I wanted something. I knit these while I was in Cambridge. Well, I actually started it, as you'll see in my last episode, I started it at a music festival, and then I sort of set it aside. Maybe that was 2 episodes ago, whatever. I started it because I needed something mindless while I was at this music festival, but then I set it aside because I was actually saving this yarn to do vanilla socks with for while I was at Lesley University, which is where I'm studying. So I wanted something mindless that I could do during readings, during some seminars, while I was sort of waiting for class to start, here, there, and everywhere, in an Uber, you know, on the airplane, just all of that. I wanted the most mindless thing I could that was also easily portable, and that is what I love about vanilla socks. So I picked some really great yarn that I knew vanilla would show off well, and I did these. And then I also took a second skein of yarn because I figured I would probably finish these and then I would need more vanilla socks. And that's what I'm going to show you now. These are living in my Madewell Cities pouch, which is what I like to keep my socks in. And I have finished the first one. There it is. And now I've passed the heel. There's the heel. And I'm well into the foot of the second one. So let me show you the yarn caked up. This is a Homespun House Harry Potter Club in Weasley is Our King. Just this really beautiful minty blue color with the most interesting speckles. I mean, red and yellow and brown and gold and green. It's just really, really fun. And then, of course, it came with the matching Sucra Sucra Progress Keeper, which for Weasley is Our King is this little cute little cupcake that's Gryffindor colors, and it has this little crown on it. So, perfect. And now I'll just show you the yarn knit up in a bit more detail with this finished one. Just look at that. Absolutely gorgeous. So this is another thing that I really like with variegated and speckled yarn. And if you'll compare these two, you know, this one has these nice little narrow stripes, which is also great. And then here you have just really, really great distribution of the colors where you have some intense places throughout and you have some more speckly places, and there's really no pooling at all. And the way Molly gets this is just to really all over speckle and variegate things rather than sort of focusing on a section. So for the for this yarn, when it was in the skein, it was like there was this one section where there was brown and it was just on that section. And that's how she got this. And for the variegated ones, as Anna goes into more detail in, which I recommend watching, there's sort of this longer section, but it would still be like all the brown in one place. But it might be taking up almost half the skein, and that gives you the pooling. And then when you have everything just really well spaced all over it, which is what Molly tends to do with most of her yarns, I believe, you get this kind of thing, which I also really, really love. So all of that, when you keep it in mind, you know, obviously it's going to help me as a dyer to sort of know what I'm getting, but it also helps any of us as knitters when we're selecting yarn, especially hand-dyed yarn, and we're trying to match it to a project and stuff like that. So like this kind of thing I think is particularly well suited for socks because it gives this really cute stripy effect. but I wouldn't necessarily match something like this with a heavy pattern in the sock. I wouldn't use it for lace or anything like that because it would really just get lost. Whereas something like this, I think you could use for lace. I mean, I wouldn't use it for some kind of lace that was like, you know, some kind of pattern that was really, really detailed. But I think you could do like a lacy shawl with a color like this. I think you could do a pattern like a Hermione's Everyday Sock very beautifully with this. In fact, Amber of, goodness, now I can't think of her podcast name. She makes the patchwork bags. I don't like this. I want to be able to name people and who I'm thinking of. Okay, hang on. Okay, I just looked it up. Amber of Maker's Haven is currently knitting Hermione's Everyday Socks with this yarn, and it matches very well. Like, it works really great with a texture like that that's a little bit, you know, more subtle. So anyway, yeah, I just think keeping things like that in mind when we're selecting yarn can be very helpful. And I'm super into my vanilla socks right now. They have flown off the needles because I've had tons of time to knit while I was at the residency. Not a lot of time to think about a lot of you know, in-depth knitting, but definitely time to just sort of crank out some socks, which was nice. My other work in progress is also very exciting. In my bag that I made from an old linen duvet and sheets is my Andromeda cardigan. Now, I did take this with me to Cambridge, but I actually didn't knit on it the entire time I was there because in the evenings I was usually way too exhausted to want, like, just mentally exhausted to really want to like focus on something like that. I usually didn't even knit very much in the evening. I would read and stuff like that, but if I did knit, I would tend to just continue on my sock because I didn't have a lot of mental space to knit on this sweater, which I will keep in mind in future residencies and probably not take something like this. That way I don't have to worry about it getting lost in my suitcase because I had a little bit of anxiety about that. Anyway, we'll get more into the joy that was flying when I talk about it in Chit Chat. But spoiler alert, not completely seamless experience. Okay, let me show you this Andromeda cardigan. So like I said, I didn't knit on it at all while I was in Cambridge, but I knit on it a lot before I left and after I got back. And I have now finished the body entirely. So I just have the sleeves. Let me show you this beautiful baby that is this cardigan. Oh, I love it so much. Okay, where to begin with this? So it's got raglan sleeves. Obviously they're just on waist yarn right now. And then the front has these really lovely like lapels where the garter stitch edge just gets wider and wider and wider, making like a triangle on both sides. That's the really cool detail. This is a pattern by Pam Allen, by the way. So here's the other side. And this gorgeous yarn, I'll show you a little bit closer, is Hedgehog Fibers Skinny Singles in Pine. I think this colorway is breathtaking. I'll show you what it looks like in the cake. So this is my third cake, and I think I'm about halfway through it. There's all the beautiful speckling. Just look at that. So gorgeous. I have 2 more cakes that I have yet to break into. I think I'm probably going to end up breaking into one of them, but I do think I'll have a full cake left to do something lovely with. And I've been thinking about maybe finding some other singles, possibly Hedgehog or possibly something else, to combine with that remaining one and use that to make the Oracle Shawl, which is a design by Kristen of Wool and Vine Yarn and Yarngasm that is coming out probably in August, I think. Anyway, it's this incredibly beautiful pie shawl with brioche and lace, and she knitted out of singles, and I think that would be a really fun use for my leftover yarn cake. Sorry that I keep screwing with my hair so much. It's kind of making me crazy. I'm growing out my bangs and I'm just like, we didn't have power yesterday, so it's just a mess up in here, you guys. I'm sorry. What was I saying? Okay, so I think I am gonna have leftovers, which is good because it's great yarn. I am a little bit concerned that I'm doing a sweater out of singles. I know that's not necessarily recommended to do. I think I'm just gonna have to be really delicate with it. But I can already tell that it's gonna be the kind of sweater that I wanna wear a lot. So we'll see how that goes. It does have, as I showed you, this garter neckline that expands, and then it also has a ridge at the bottom of the sweater is garter, and it's going to have garter cuffs on the sleeves, which are going to be like 3/4 length. So I could very well be done with this by the time I come back next week, or not, we'll see. But I'm knitting this. I have sized down 2 needle sizes, and that the fabric is still a little bit holier than I would have expected, but I do think that when it blocks, it's going to sort of even out and look more like what I want it to. But I do just think it's absolutely gorgeous. I'm really excited about it. And I have not alternated skeins at all for this project. I initially started trying to do that, then I just stopped and gave up. Actually ended up ripping out because I decided to go down another needle size or knit a different size or something. I can't even remember anymore. But I'm not alternating skeins. I hate alternating skeins. I will do just about whatever I can to avoid it. And in this case, I think it's worked fine. Now, I did make sure that all of the cakes looked pretty similar to each other. And there is one cake, let me show you this. So here are my 2 that I haven't broken into yet. And I'll show you. One of them looks to me, they're messes. This one looks more like the ones that I've used. This one seems less heavily speckled, as you can see. So because I don't think I'm going to have to use all of them, I'm just gonna not use this one, and I think I should be good. If I did have to use all of them, I might consider alternating at some point when I had to incorporate this guy, but luckily I don't think it's gonna be an issue. So yeah, with hedgehog fibers, I mean, they're sort of in that gray area between an indie dyer and like a mainstream manufacturer. So I do think you tend to get a fair amount of consistency. And I think a lot of times you can eyeball whether a skein is going to give you a problem. I say that as someone who hasn't had any sort of major kerfuffle with it yet. And maybe when I do, I will start to rethink my habits on alternating skeins. But I honestly think even if I get to a point where I screw up and I have to rip back and start alternating because I've made a mistake and I really should have alternated in a project, that ripping back and fixing it is going to be less work than alternating all the time so as to prevent that, in my mind. Like, it would be one thing if I didn't mind alternating skeins. I would just do it, but I hate it so much. So at this point, I think I'm gonna just try to be okay with the fact that I'm not a knitter who alternates. I'm a knitter who works real hard to, gosh, there's fluff in my face. This is such a crazy episode, I'm sorry. I think I'm just not gonna be a knitter who alternates. I'm gonna be a knitter who works really hard to buy skeins that are consistent. Yeah. And maybe you have to compromise on that. Like, maybe you don't knit an entire sweater out of like super indie dyed lot, yarn where the dye lot is going to be like 2 skeins. you know, maybe, or maybe you, I don't know where I'm going with this. God, this is hard. I am spacier than I realized. I'm trying to get through this, you guys. I'm very spacey right now. Okay. Oh my God, I'm so tired. If only you knew how tired I was. Okay. So that's the situation with this loveliness. I love it. And I can't wait to wear it, which will be soon. Oh, and let me show you my progress. Because since I left this guy on here, this is where I was when this is where I was when you saw me last, when you saw this last. And I've done all of that to finish the body since then. And these were some long rows too, because of these big triangle things. It's a swingy cardigan. So these rows were like at least 350 stitches by the time I got to the bottom. But yeah, I was here just below where I split for the sleeves, and then I've knitted all the rest of the bottom. So I'm proud of that progress. I think I really made some headway there. So back into the bag, and let's talk about On the Horizon. So my upcoming plans, I have been thinking about vanilla socks since I made these 2 pair so quickly, and it's been making me feel like I need to get my husband's Beyond the Wall socks off the needles. I mean, I've been feeling really bad about that for a while, and they've been like bothering me. And I think I need to just sort of dedicate some time to making that happen. So, you know, I say that now, we'll see what happens. But I did bring them to show you in case you don't even remember what they look like. They're made with Felici in the Beyond the Wall colorway. I popped in a Fish Lips Kiss heel. This is the first one. I did finally get around to measuring his foot, so now I feel like I can finish the first one. And yeah, I want to make these happen. So maybe saying that here will give me some level of accountability, or maybe I'll just be ashamed by the sheer number of podcast episodes where I have had these socks and the fact that I started them months ago. And you know, maybe I can just shame myself into finishing them finally. We'll see. The other exciting things are garments that I want to get going on. So as soon as possible, I want to start the Gibson, which is this really cute vintagey t-shirt made with DK weight yarn. I call it kind of like a Jackie O collar. I've heard it called a lot of things like roll neck and funnel neck and all kinds of stuff. Anyway, it's really cute. I was thinking I would do the Amalia tank next as my next sort of a summer garment, but I just wasn't really in the mood to start it. It's going to be solid black. It's going to be a lot of flat knitting and seaming, and it's just, you know, I mean, it's gorgeous. I'm going to make it at some point. I just wasn't necessarily feeling it right now. So then when I was in Cambridge, I went to the Kennedy Library in Boston, and it kind of got me in the mood to go ahead and start this Gibson, which I had bought the yarn for previously. You know, because I saw all those lovely Jackie O outfits, including her red suit that she wore for the White House tour, which was what inspired me to choose red for the Gibson. So I'm definitely in the mood for that. So I'm going to be starting that soon. And then when I finish the Andromeda, I'm going to start another cardigan, which is the Wispy cardigan by Hannah Fettig. And I have shown you the yarn I want to use for that. It's the Sweet Sparrow yarn in the colorway Queenie, inspired by Harry Potter. Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. So yeah, pretty excited about what I've got coming up. Okay, now it is time for stash enhancement, and there is a lot to show you guys, so let's jump into it. First, while I was in Cambridge, I did seek out a yarn store, which was walking distance. So if you're familiar with Cambridge, Leslie is off of Mass Ave and tucked into like, it's like just, there's like a corner where there's like Harvard Law and then Harvard Divinity, and Leslie's like tucked into that, so it's like south to Harvard Law and east to Harvard Divinity. And that, if you're familiar with Cambridge, is like a pretty okay walk to Harvard Square, one direction down Mass Ave, but it's also a nice walk to the Porter Square area, which is the other way up Mass Ave. And so one day I walked up that direction to check out another bookstore. I saw a lot of bookstores, you guys. There's a lot of bookstores in Cambridge. And I went to a yarn store. Now, the yarn store was called, dang it, I said I was going to remember what it was. Then I didn't write it down. Hang on. Mind's Eye Yarns. And they were lovely. They were tiny, tucked into a little house. And they were having an anniversary sale. And so it was like really good prices. It was like 40% off everything or something crazy like that. I think that's what it was. I think it was 40% shop wide. I didn't even know about the sale. I was just walking in. So that was exciting. And I picked up a little souvenir yarn, which I have here. It is Malabrigo. This is the base Rios, which is pure merino superwash, 210 yards to 100 grams. I think that's about worsted. And this colorway is called Glitter. This is very far outside my comfort zone. I don't like bright orange at all. I do like these sort of rusty oranges, especially for the fall. And I typically don't gravitate toward brown. But I saw these, and here, I got 4 of them. I'll tell you what I'm making in a second. I saw these and I just had to go with this color. As far as I remember, I haven't seen Malabrigo in person before, which doesn't mean it's not carried at any of my local yarn stores, because there are several and I don't claim to know everything they have. But I don't remember having seen Malabrigo before. So that was exciting. I mean, it's so beautiful. And I just really couldn't stop looking at this color. This was the color that just took me away, and it made me think that it wanted to be a beautiful, big, cozy worsted weight shawl for fall. So I popped up the Ravelry page on my phone and started looking through my favorites, and immediately I knew that it was going to be the Void shawl. So the Void shawl, huge, cozy, squishy, just everything you want. And in this color, I mean, I just think this is going to be such a wonderful, wonderful fall project. So I'm very, very excited about it. Now, I can't spend too much more time talking about that because there is a lot of stash enhancement to get to. So let's get to the next thing, shall we? Next up, I made a little order from La Bien-Aimée. Now, the reason I did this was I wanted to, stop it. Ugh. So the reason I did this was that I was trying to track down Lane magazine, which I did. That's the other thing. Lane magazine, this is issue 2. It's Nordic Knit Life. I saw, again, Amber of Maker's Haven going on at length about how lovely this was, and she read some passages of it, and it just really spoke to me. I'm very into that Nordic look. It just seemed like something I would love to lose myself in, which I have been doing. I have barely started it because I've really been just savoring it and reading every page like it's a book. And just spending some time with it every now and then. So anyway, I got this at La Bien Aimée, and I tracked it down there. It's not available very many places. It's a pretty new magazine. So when I saw that it was there, you know, like you do when you order something from France, you're like, let's throw some more stuff in that basket. I mean, we all do this. So I grabbed a tote bag, which is really pretty. It's really pretty, you guys. It's black and gold, and it says La Bien Aimée, hand dyed in Paris, and it has this lovely little U on it with like the wreath, and it's really thick and well made. Like, this could make a great project bag as well. It has some inner pockets, and it's just really pretty. So yeah, so I grabbed that, and then I grabbed some yarn. Now here's the funny thing. Well, first let me show you the yarn, and then let me show you what I thought I was tell you what I thought I was ordering and what I'm planning to do with it. So here's what I got. Look at the speckles in this. Right? Okay, so this base is called Allure. It is 400 meters or 437 yards per 100 grams, so that's a fingering weight. And it is 70% baby alpaca, 20% silk, and 10% cashmere, which, yes, feels amazing. Soft, but also extremely drapey because of the silk. Now I thought, oh, the colorways. This is Driftwood Graffiti, and this is Yellow Brick Road. I could have sworn that what I was ordering was a sock set. It was a different base, a sock base, and this was a mini. Could have sworn by this. Now, these came while I was in Cambridge. My husband opened them, you know, threw away all the packaging and everything. So even if I wanted to figure out what had happened or send them back or do whatever, at that point it was just like beyond me. And this base is so lovely that I was like, let's just work with it. It wasn't like I had real specific plans that I absolutely needed to make socks. Like, I just liked these colorways. So they're gonna be a shawl, probably. Of course, my first thought was brioche, because they would make a beautiful brioche together, and I love brioche. But thinking more about the drape, I feel like maybe I should keep that in mind and select something that's a bit drapier and lacier. So I'll have to do some digging and figure out what I want them to be, and it's definitely a back burner project. But very beautiful and lovely and exciting thing to come home to. We're just getting started, by the way, so don't go anywhere. It's so ridiculous. I don't know what happened, like, well, it's been 3 weeks, so that's part of it, but this was a heavy buying period for me anyway. So there's a lot to get through, guys. Okay, next. I got some minis from the Fawn and the Fox, her Wes Anderson collection. So let's see, this is Royal Tenenbaums, Fantastic Mr. Fox, Grand Budapest Hotel, Life Aquatic, and Moonrise Kingdom, all inspired by Wes Anderson movies, of course. I love Wes Anderson, so this was a thing where I had been like stalking her, making like ready to pounce when she listed these again, which she had talked about doing a while ago, and then she didn't have the right kind of dye, and you know, etc. So I did pounce on these a few weeks ago before I left for Cambridge. They showed up while I was gone. And my plan is to knit them into my Cozy Memories blanket, which you may know that all I've done so far is knit squares out of yarn that I've used for other projects, because I really do want them to be tied to memories and be like really special, not just something to use up any random scrap or any random mini that I have. But I did order these specifically for that, just because they're so special, being hand dyed and being inspired by movies that I love. I thought it would be really nice to have a little square of each of them in there. So that was my plan. I will then have a little bit left over from each mini which, you know, I can turn into like Christmas ornaments or heels, cuffs, and toes, or who knows what out of those. So yeah, they are on her Magpie base, which is a 75 merino superwash, 20 nylon and 5 gold stellina, and it's a 2-ply. So they would work well for heels, cuffs, and toes if I wanted to use them for that. They would also make really lovely, just cute little Christmas ornaments and things like that. So yeah, so we'll see what I do with the leftovers once I knit them into my memories blanket. But I'm excited. I've been wanting to add them, but I wanted to show them to you guys first, all fresh and in their packaging. So these are going to go in the blanket soon. Okay. There's more. I got more Harry Potter club yarn from Molly of a Homespun House. If you're not familiar, her Harry Potter club is a collaboration with Sucra Miniatures, where she dyes some yarn inspired by Harry Potter, and then it comes with a matching Progress Keeper. I became British for a second, sorry about that. When you start sounding British, you are probably getting dehydrated. That's what I hear. Okay, so this colorway, and I'm just going to go ahead and show you guys. I'm sure everybody who's gotten it has looked at it already because it came while I was in Cambridge. So this is called Make-A-Wish Harry. And like I was talking about before, with her yarn being very like speckled all over the place to give you that even distribution of color, this is what that looks like in the skein, you know? So it's like you have some brown here, and a little green here, and blue here, but generally speaking, it's like there's some more blue, some more green, like it's, there's even distribution on the skein, and there will be even distribution when I knit it up, I believe. So this is, of course, inspired by Harry's birthday in the first book, when he's on that, in that cabin on that island with the Dursleys trying to outrun the owl post, and there's a storm, and then Hagrid shows up with a cake for him, which is what inspired the Progress Keeper. It says Happy Birthday Harry, and it looks just like the cake from the movie, with everything like misspelled Hagrid style, and it's a little squashed because he had it in his pocket or something, in a box but in his pocket. Yeah, so that's my nice Harry Potter birthday set. Very exciting. Okay, the last thing I have to show you is a knit picks order, and it's a little bit more practical. So our friends just had a baby, and I want to knit the baby a Tokyo hoodie, which is a really cute simple pattern by Quince & Co. I called for Quince & Co yarn, but I really wanted to knit it with superwash, because a lot of times when you give something as a gift to someone who isn't a knitter and doesn't know a lot about fiber, they would really just prefer something that they can throw in the wash, especially like our friends have 2 young children, and this is for a child, and it's like everything's gonna get dirty, and they don't want to have to deal with, you know, you giving them a gift that now they're worried they're going to ruin when you knit it, you know, like I want her to feel like she can do whatever she wants with this hoodie, and it's going to be relatively indestructible. So I did not want to use Quince & Co yarn, the yarn that the pattern called for. I just wanted to use some knit picks. So I got the swish worsted, and I'm just showing you one skein. Obviously I have more than one. And this is in the honey colorway. It is 100% superwash merino worsted. Merino wool in a worsted weight. So tired, you guys. Yeah, I love this yellow. I love yellow on babies. I think it's super cute. Yeah, so he was just born. I'm gonna knit this. I'm still deciding if I'm going to do the 3-month or the 6-month size. I want it to be something he can wear through the cold weather, so obviously I'm not doing the newborn because he'll be 3 months by the time fall is here. I kind of feel like I just want to do the 6-month, that way I know it can last him through the whole cold weather season, and if something's a little bit too big, it's not that big a deal. So yeah, I think I'm going to do the 6-month size. But yeah, I think the yellow is going to be really cute. And then I also grabbed some Stroll in my go-to Dove Heather because I'm making something for my husband. I'm going to make him a stuffed raccoon, which is something that he wants. We're stuffed animal people in this house. I don't know what to tell you. But anyway, I asked him what kind of stuffed animal he would like me to make him, and he said a raccoon. So he doesn't know that I'm making it now. His birthday is in August, but I am. So it'll be a bit of a surprise and a bit of an expected thing. I already have some Dove Heather, but I needed more. And then I also have some black and white that I'm going to use. So this was all I needed for that. And then I got some Tough Puff. Oh yeah. So I talked before about the pattern, what's it called? The Armor Scarf by Two of Wands, which I'm going to use up some of my Twinkle yarn for. It's a discontinued that's kind of like this, but I needed some extra. I needed a bunch of black and some gray to kind of balance out what I already have to make that. So that's going to happen at some point. I'm a little disappointed by how rough this is. It's not as soft as the Twinkle, but that's all right. I'm not a particularly sensitive person when it comes to these things, and I am making it for myself. So that should be fine. So yeah, I grabbed some of that, and then just to, you know, get myself into that free shipping quotient. What can I say? I grabbed some red Tough Puff so that I can make a woodland hoodlet, which is a tiny owl knits pattern for this big old like cable-y giant hood thing with a tassel, and it's crazy. Which is like a costume. I mean, I'm making it as a costume, as a kind of like fun thing that I can wear, do like Red Riding Hood at Halloween. I could wear it to the Renfest. Like, I'll find a million. We are also a family with a costume trunk. We have a lot of stuffed animals and we have a costume trunk. We do not yet have children. That is just how we're living our lives. And I won't judge how you're living your life. Okay? We on the same page? You guys, my brain right now, it's not, anyway, what was I saying? I'm making myself a giant red hood and I'm not going to apologize for it. That's what's happening. It's going to be fun to knit because it's going to be huge, chunky cables. I just think it's going to be fun to make, so I'm making it. Yeah, so yeah, that concludes stash enhancement. And now we have a little bit of time left for chit chat. I'm going to pull out my sock and let's talk. Sock talk. I should have called this segment Sock Talk because it's the part where I knit on a sock and I talk. Well, too late now. Okay, if you're just staying for the knitting talk, thanks for sticking with me through my loopiness. And please give this episode a thumbs up so other people can find my channel. Click the thumbs up down there. Subscribe if you haven't yet, and I'll see you next time. And if you're sticking around, let's start talking. So, I'm just gonna scooch back a little. Okay, so I don't even know how to talk about my residency. It was just so intense and amazing and exciting. It was like every day I was there was stuff going on from morning till night, and everything was just very exciting. It was, you know, by midweek my brain was like, couldn't fit anything else in it, and like I was just, we were workshopping each other's creative work, we were doing these seminars, and then we were listening to these readings with faculty or visiting readers, and there was just a lot going on, and it was really intense and amazing. And anytime I had a free moment, instead of like going and taking a nap like I probably should have done, I would go out and explore Cambridge. Or one day when I had an entire half day, I went to Boston, and I got a lobster roll, and then I walked for an hour and a half of it in the pouring rain, and then half of it along the beach after the sun was starting to come out, to the Kennedy Presidential Library and Museum, as I mentioned, which is right on Boston Harbor. It's really beautiful. And I did that. So like I just used up every single moment that I had there. So obviously I was very exhausted. When it came time to fly home, and I had a layover in Charlotte, because I'm the kind of person who, like, if a direct flight is a couple $100 more, I don't buy it. And also I was trying to like make the times be right so that I could stay as long as I could there and finish up some of the like optional things that they had on the last day. So I really probably, anyway, next time I'm going to do a better job of scheduling my flights, and I'm going to make sure I get direct flights, but I didn't. So what ended up happening was the flight to Charlotte was super delayed. So then I missed my connector to Cincinnati, and that was the last flight to Cincinnati that night. So then I tried really hard to get onto a flight to Dayton or Louisville or Indianapolis, but all of them were booking up at the same time. I was literally standing in a line to figure out what to do and like what flight I was going to get rebooked on. The line was 2 hours, took 2 hours to get through, because everyone else, it was like everyone who had been flying in the entire country was trapped in this airport, was what it felt like. We were all on the phones trying to rebook while also standing in line to rebook and to find out if we were going to get hotel accommodation for the night, because some people, like every flight delay is flagged, whether it has to do with weather or air traffic or like repairs in the airplane or various different things. And if your delay is flagged by weather, then you don't get a hotel, because they're basically like, oh, it's an act of God, there's nothing we could do. Now, I didn't think mine was related to weather, because there wasn't any weather in Boston and there wasn't any weather in Charlotte, but because there had been weather like 2 cities previous that had delayed the plane getting to where it needed to get to go, they decided that they weren't going to put me in a hotel. So they brought out some cots. And I did lay down on the cot all night, but I did not go to sleep, mostly because I just didn't feel like it was a very safe thing to do, to sleep in a room with a whole bunch of people when you're a woman traveling alone. I just didn't like to think about what that worst case scenario could look like, so I didn't fall asleep. So I talked on the phone to my mom basically most of the night, which was not because I couldn't be left alone. It was more that she just didn't want to stop talking. So then in the morning, that flight was also delayed several hours, and I finally got home. And, you know, I had been awake I did sleep a little on the plane, but by the time I got on the plane, I had been awake for 24 hours. And when I got home, I crawled into bed and I slept for 5 hours. And then I got up and I dropped an unconscionable amount of money on empanadas delivered to my house, because I was not going to leave that house. And I also really wanted some empanadas. So I did that, and then I slept some more. And luckily, I did have the next couple days off for the holiday. Although I didn't spend it recuperating as well as I could have, because, you know, I had plans with my family and stuff. So basically now this weekend, you know, coming up on this next weekend, I had gone to work again, and I was still I felt like I had the flu, because I was just already exhausted by the time I got stuck in the airport. And just all of that had run me down. So I was so tired coming into this weekend. And then what happened was on Friday night, we had a really bad storm and a tree branch fell, like a huge tree branch, on the power lines across the street from our house. It actually fell directly in front of where my car was parked. We didn't have a driveway, so I park on the street, and it was so close to my car. And it was in the spot where I park all the time. Like, the only reason my car wasn't where the tree fell is that when I had parked, there was a different car there. Then somehow that car was lucky enough that they had left by the time the branch fell. So it didn't hit anyone's car, thank God. But or hurt anyone. I mean, that would be the real problem, right? But it did down the power lines, and apparently there were power lines down all over the city from the storm, because when we called our energy company, well, our neighbors called the energy company, they were like, yeah, we're coming as fast as we can. We've got a lot of other stuff. So our power stayed out from midnight between Friday and Saturday, all the way until Sunday morning, basically. So here I am trying to recuperate and finally catch up. We did also have a wedding that we needed to go to yesterday when the power was out. So there's no AC. It's super hot. I'm getting overheated. I'm trying to make myself look nice for a wedding, but I don't have my hair straightener. I can't, like, the lights are so dark in any of the rooms where we have mirrors, like the bathrooms, that I can't put on makeup properly. And like, I'm like sweating and hot, and I mean, the whole thing was just so frustrating. So then today has really been like my first day that I felt like I can just spend as much time as I need just recuperating. And so as you can tell, I'm still quite spacey with regard to all of that. But I mean, I'm fine. I didn't get super sick, and you know, there are a lot of things that could have ended up worse than they did. So I'm not feeling bad about it. I'm just explaining why I'm so incredibly out of sorts. So what I do want to talk about briefly is those other little exciting bits that happened this week, the 4th of July and then the wedding that we went to yesterday. So the 4th of July, Ryan had to work. He works in a hospital, so he has to work 2 holidays every year. And this year, 4th of July was one of them. But we have a really great event in our neighborhood. Every 4th of July, we have a parade and a rock and roll carnival. And my parents like to come and go to it with us. So I went to that with my parents. And it is just amazing. Like, my neighborhood is full of like weirdos and artists, and like, it's just our celebration of Independence Day. It's more like we're just celebrating independence as a concept because it's just these groups of people, like, you know, representing like a local vintage shop, you know, everybody dressed in crazy outfits. Or there's like a skate shop where they'll have a trailer dragging like part of a half pipe, and people are doing like jumps on it, like in the parade. Lots of dance troupes, lots of just local politicians, or, you know, people running for local city council positions and things. And then they'll get really creative. Like, there was this guy who, his last name was like Sealberg or something. It had seal in it. And they made a giant paper mache seal. Like, everything is just so fun. One year, people had these giant paper mache president heads. So they were just walking down the street with these giant heads that looked like different famous presidents. It's so hard to even explain, like, the madness that is this parade. It's very poorly organized, so there's always like these, it always starts late, and there's always these huge gaps between different, you know, groups. But nobody cares because it's just the best parade. It's just like this amazing community moment that the best thing is at the very end. They're playing music and people are dancing, and they like motion for everybody on who's been watching the parade to now pour into the streets, and it becomes this giant group dance party where everybody's just dancing down the street at the back of the parade. And then we all dance down to the park at the end of the street, which is where we have the rock and roll carnival that goes into the night, and that's like all food trucks and a stage with local bands and a bunch of like local breweries pump in their kegs and stuff like that. Lots of families, lots of kids in this neighborhood, so they'll be watching the parade and they'll also be involved and, you know, dressed up like things and having made their own costumes and stuff in the parade, and lots of older people and just every kind of person. It's really, really a special event. So I was glad that I was able to be home and go to that, and that my parents came with me even though Ryan couldn't be there this year. And then yesterday we had some more family time, this time with my husband's side, because his cousin was getting married. So we drove out to Indiana. They were getting married at this really beautiful barn that's been, you know, converted into like an event center, and it was just gorgeous. They got married outside under this like chuppah with like I mean, I guess it wasn't a chuppah because it wasn't a Jewish ceremony, but it was essentially a chuppah with like flowers on it, and it was just the perfect, beautiful blue sky full of clouds, and we were all sitting out there watching the ceremony, and then the reception was in the barn, and it was, you know, just this huge event. All of our family on that side, you know, we got to spend time with Ryan's parents and his brother and sister and his brother-in-law and our nephews. And like, I love any chance to spend time with our family, but it's really exciting when there's an event like that, like a wedding, and it's like even more extended family and everyone just celebrating together. And the wedding was really, really beautiful. The venue was beautiful, and it was really nice to see them get married. They've been together for a long time. They actually have a son together who was their ring bearer, and so, you know, it's like really emotional to watch people kind of having that moment. And it's interesting how weddings have been different for me after I've gotten married, which we got married 3 years ago. And now I can't go to a wedding and not think about my own wedding and get like nostalgic and, you know, happy thinking about that. And, you know, so there was that going on as well for Ryan and I, both like looking at each other during the ceremony and thinking about our wedding and being happy for his cousin and her new husband having their beautiful moment. So yeah, it was nice. My community is small. Like, I'm not a person who has a ton of close friends. You know, like my best friend was in a sorority in college, and she goes to like 6 weddings a year. It's ridiculous. Like, she's just always going to weddings. That's not the case for me. Like, so I tend to when I go to one, it tends to be like, you know, a bit of a bigger deal, I guess, and like exciting. I like them. I like weddings. So anyway, lots of good family time and attempts to recuperate from the exhilarating but exhausting residency. And now, as I plunge into my first semester, wish me luck that my brain starts working properly soon so that I can meet all of the mini deadlines that lie ahead of me. So yeah, I guess that's all I have to talk about this week. Thank you for joining me, you guys. Thank you for bearing with me. I hope that you enjoyed catching up on my projects and seeing my incredibly large stash enhancement. And I hope you guys had a lovely holiday if you do celebrate the 4th. And if not, that you're just having a beautiful summer or winter for those of you in the Southern Hemisphere. And yeah, thank you so much for watching, telling people, subscribing, hitting the thumbs up. I appreciate it so much. And I will see you guys soon.